Alright, lastly, for this unit, we're going to be looking at my personal least favorite topic of this, which is the intermediate value theorem and the squeeze theorem. Now, these are two different theorems that we will further build on later in calculus. And to simplify it, calculus, man, they always overcomplicate these topics. They have a bunch of just characters that just don't. It's too convoluted, right? Even for me, if I go to my calculus textbook, some of these pages I open up, I don't even understand what it says, and I've already learned this stuff, right? So of course, you gotta try to dumb it down for yourself when you first process this information. Now, to simplify, the intermediate value theorem, it's basically when if a function is continuous between 2 points, right, between an interval, that means every y value exists between the y values of those 2 points. So basically, say I have, like, this is from A to B, right? I'm just going to draw like a little line. This is continuous, right? So that means from A to B, every single y value exists between this f of A and f of B. Every single one of these exists as long as it's continuous. That makes perfectly logical sense. They just tend to overcomplicate it because you need to write a hypothesis inclusion that states, I'll read it out. It says, if f is continuous on the range A to B, and if k is a number between f of A and f of B, then there's at least one number x between A and B such that f of x is equal to k. That's what they want you to write out. But do you see how if you are learning it based off that explanation, that's so hard to process? But it makes perfectly logical sense when you put it down like this, right? Now, the squeeze theorem is just another way to indirectly find a limit. And it's basically saying you're trying to find the limit of f of x at one point. We're going to find two functions that that f of x is between. So say I have the function, I have like this function for f of x, and I'm trying to find this limit, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a function that's over this, and find a function that's under this, and I'm going to find the limit of this top graph at point C. I'm going to find the limit of this bottom graph at point C. And if those points are equal to each other, then this middle one, the one I'm trying to find, will also be equal to it because it's kind of squeezing in between the function that we're trying to find. That also makes sense because one is always going to be over it, one is always going to be under it. If it equals to each other, then our f of x is going to be squeezed in between those two. That makes sense, right? And I'm going to be honest, is these are rarely tested on the AP test, so it's not something you need to focus on. But they are used in other parts of the course, which is why you kind of want to understand how these two theorems work. You don't necessarily need to remember these hypotheses and conclusions, but you do need to know why these work and what they are, which is important.